when Brad invited me to come and speak to you all, he said, I know that this topic is very dear to your heart, and he is right. I'm going to speak very much from my heart today. So the very first thing that I want to say is my topic is actually be a tree, be a tree. And so I want you to just remember those words, be a tree, when I finish, and let that just be something that rings in your ears as you go on to the next speaker. So crisis to conquest. It is so pertinent for today's world right now. What's going on in Ukraine, Russia, COVID, we are surrounded by crisis. So I think we really need the skills that the 5 C's you were talking about, Raj, just then. I'm probably going to cover a lot of those also when I speak today. So be a tree, be a tree. I think one of the most important things is, first of all, to see how a crisis is separate from who we are. So a crisis happens to us, but we are not the crisis. We experience crisis. Crisis comes to us in different ways and forms, but we are not the crisis. And we have to be able to separate the two. We have to be able to look at the crisis in its face it. And I think that is the very first step to take us from crisis to conquest. So that being said, I'd like to share a crisis that I've gone through. So when I was just a little girl, I went through a crisis myself. So just the age of 23, and I was in the beautiful island of Papua New Guinea. And one night I was abducted by a gang of men, and they had me there in their village for 8 hours. And it was not an easy thing to go through, but I'm sitting here today and I'm talking to you, and I'm filled with life and hope. And so I want to share some of the things that have helped me in moving from that crisis to conquest. So being a tree and looking at nature, I think, is such a great way for me to share what has helped me. When I was just 11 years old, I actually made a decision to begin my spiritual journey. And I think the very first thing was spirituality. And I think spirituality is a root for us. And be it whatever spirituality you have, that spirituality gives you strength. It's the root system for us. It grounds us. And I think trees, we learn from trees, and we see how strong roots help trees survive so much. Faith has helped me as well. I thank my parents for putting that into me from a young age. And when I was 11 and made that decision to follow the path of spirituality, I in fact stood up amongst other spiritual people and said it was my decision to begin a spiritual journey, and that I wanted to be a tree planted by waters, and that my leaves should not wither through any season, that I should be strong. And I'm thankful for having that spirituality in me. When root systems go down into the ground, they come across a rock. Actually, the beautiful thing about roots is they go through rocks and around rocks, and they keep going. And that is so important, I think, for us too, to just keep growing and keep going and go through the rock, embrace the rock, because it's part of us. So crisis can come to you in so many different ways. Go around it, embrace it, but keep moving, keep strong. My nickname at school where I work, because I'm a performing arts teacher, the deputy principal, her nickname for me is Miss Around the Rock, because she says every time there's a problem, every time there's something that comes like a wall, you just go around it. And so it's a really great thing to be able to do that. Learning from the trees, be a tree, have strong roots. another lovely thing about trees is that they bend and they go with whatever it is that's pushing them, whatever it is that's pulling them, whatever the crisis may be, just go with it instead of fighting against it and trying to understand it too much at the time. Just experience it all. It's not easy, but I think that is so important. We can see how trees, the bending is what's allowing them to not break. And I know for myself, when I went through my crisis that I've just shared with you, I had to go through the process of it. So trusting the process and going with the process, rolling with the punches, going on. Que sera, sera, whatever will be, will be. The future's not ours to see. Que sera, sera. That truth in that beautiful song, whatever will be, that we can walk into life, into the middle of a crisis and experience a crisis and walk out of it and be adaptable, be flexible, be open to whatever it is that's coming into our life. Believe in the bigger picture. What happens to us is this small patch on a big patchwork quilt, and the quilt is going to be beautiful. It will be beautiful. It is good. But there will be bad in between, and it'll happen to all of us in different ways. But look at the big picture all the time. Keep your eyes on, but the ultimate is good, and the ultimate is great, and the ultimate is wonderful, and what's going to come out of it is wonderful. Know and conquer yourself. I really believe knowing yourself and understanding yourself is so important. What was my journey? After I went through that crisis, I did my master's in creative art therapy. It was so powerful because what did I do? I took my crisis and I painted and I drew and I wrote and I sang and I faced the crisis and what it was in myself. To turn away, to say, I don't want to look at that, I'm going to push it away, that is so harmful. And it stops you from conquering what you need to conquer in yourself and then outside. Your mindset, what you do with your mind, that is so important. And there too, you have to conquer that. Keeping my brain active. So I was keeping my brain active, still learning, still growing, still going. They say an idle mind is the devil's workshop. It's true. So keep it active. And so crushed in my life, crippled, crumbled, crashed, cracked. This is crisis, yeah? And I even then had to go through another crisis, cremation, cremating my own child that I gave birth to, and experiencing that was painful too. But from ashes and from cremation, and the cremation of your own soul at times can come out life, and we can come out of ashes. Trees do. Here in Australia, we have bushfires, and the bushfires have burnt through many areas, but you go driving through those areas now, and it is so beautiful to see trees coming out of those ashes, still burnt, scarred tree trunks, but green and growth. And so we too have that ability to conquer and come up confident, come up and continue, come up and be content, come up and be connected with ourselves, come up and confront whatever it is that was our crisis so we can move on, contemplate all the time. Rumi, poet, said, the wound is where the light enters. So we have to be able to face the crisis and let the light enter from the crisis so that we then do conquer. So don't fight change. Trees accept the cycle of life. Nature teaches us, and what is meant to be will be, be a tree, be a tree. Thank you so much.